I'm Susana Vega. I'm taking the Instrumental English class Level 2 in Section E to C, and I'm going to talk to you about comparative adjectives. We use comparative adjectives to compare things, to express how people or things are different. Now let's go to see the rules for creating comparative adjectives. For short adjectives with one syllable, we add the suffix "er" at the end of the word to make the comparative form, and normally you need to use the word "then" in the sentence. For example, the comparative form for tall is taller. We could say Ivan is taller than Mike, or for young, the comparative form is younger, so we can say Lisa is younger than her sister. Be careful of one-syllable adjectives with the last three letters in a consonant-vowel consonant format, like big or hot. For this, you have to double the last consonant and then add "er" to make the comparative form. For example, the comparative form for big is bigger, so we could say her balloon was bigger than his brother's balloon, or for hot is hotter. We could say today is hotter than yesterday. If the adjective ends in Y, first change the Y into an I, and then add the suffix "er." For example, the comparative form for dry is drier, so we can say the desert is drier than the rainforest. If the adjective ends in E, we just add an R at the end. For example, the comparative form for nice is nicer, so we can say it is nicer than Anna. For large is larger, so we can say the square area is larger than the circle area. For longer adjectives, we usually add the adverb more directly before the adjective to say that someone or something has a superior quality, size, or characteristic. You can add more before any adjective even when it has only one syllable. In fact, we have to use more with some one-syllable adjectives. We can add them the suffix "er." So for the adjective real, the comparative form is more real, not realer. We can say her smile felt more real than the first one she usually wore. Or for right, the comparative form is more right, not right. So we can say you are more right than I thought. For wrong is more wrong, not wronger. So we can say something was more wrong than the horrible costume. For adjectives with two syllables and with "er" or "ow, we just add "er" at the end. For example, the comparative form for clever is cleverer. We could say her mother was cleverer than I was. For shallow is shallower. We can say this part of the pool is shallower than the other part of the pool. And for adjectives ends in "le", we just add the letter R. For example, comparative form for simple is simpler. We can say the instructions were much simpler than I expected. For the adjectives with two syllables that end in Y, first change the Y into an I and then add "er." For example, the comparative form for dirty is dirtier. We could say the floor is dirtier than the floor in the kitchen. For ugly is uglier. We can say the blue paint looks uglier than the gray paint. Adjectives with more than two syllables can only make their comparative form by using more. For instance, the comparative form for beautiful is more beautiful. We can say Sophia is more beautiful than Liz. For expensive, it's more expensive. We can say this computer is more expensive than that laptop. There are also some irregular adjectives. So for the adjective good, the comparative form is better. An example sentence would be, I prefer chocolate cake much better than vanilla cake. For bad, the comparative form is worse. We could say this model is worse than the new one. Also note that using more with comparative adjectives is similar to using less. We can use less to say that someone or something has an inferior quality, size, or characteristic. You can add less before any adjective without having to change the spelling. For example, hamburgers are less healthy than vegetables. Thank you.